All right, it's 6:30. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Education for September 18th to order. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is the consent agenda. Recommended action approval item is the consent agenda of 5A, which is the September 4th meeting minutes, and 6C, which is the Board of Education packets. Are there any questions or removal of either of these items? May I have a motion, please, to accept the consent agenda?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there a second?
Yes.
Colleen, all in favor?
Aye.
7-4-0 against, the motion passes. For the good of the cause, this is the Board of Education encourages public participation on school-related matters at board meetings. To allow for public participation, a period not to exceed 30 minutes has been set aside at this time in the board meeting. As a general rule, public participation will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Anyone who wants to speak should state their name and sign the sheet. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Okay, thank you. Moving right along. Reports for the board. We're going to hear from those intimately involved in the great project, and that's the Lake Placid Elementary School Trail Project. Funding for this project originated with a student-initiated grant of $1,000 from the Educational Opportunity Fund and additional funding from Lowe's. This project also has support of many volunteers, including the Barkeeter Trail Allowance Beta. Sonia, were you going to introduce for us?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please, thank you. I'd like to introduce the core team that's involved in this process. So, of course, we've got Deanna Brown, our school counselor, and then we've got the 4th grade team in the back there. We've got Greg, Allison, and Amy. We have, I'll stick with the students and then, with the families with them. We have got Eden, we've got Holly, we have got Henry and Charlie and Emerson right here that I believe are all going to help speak. And Deanna, if you want to talk about the slideshow. Thank you very much for letting us be in here. Me, you see all the time.
So these lovely 5th graders were asked to speak to you because not only did they work for weeks and weeks and weeks on the sign along with their cohort of now 5th graders, they also came to school on a Saturday to help us build the trail that's kind of the heart of our movement. So it helps us access the places that these lovely signs will be when they are installed in the near future. We just got them printed. I think they came in a day or two before school opened up, so we're all super excited to see how their hard work paid off. So we have a few pictures from our process, and they're going to tell you a little bit about what you're looking at. Is Tyler here tonight? I don't know. This is Holly's little brother.
Tyler.
So Josh and I am from Beta helped us build the trails, and my dad went through the first with a mini excavator, and then we had the trail made, which finished the trails off.
We worked the trail and clipped the roots. We had to cut a lot of bushes from the trail, and then Tyler focused up on that.
We had to dig out big rocks in the trail and fill out the bushes so that it was easier to bike through.
There were a lot of bushes in some sections.
There were.
Our trail goes through an old orchard.
And there's a lot of mosquitoes.
Yeah. There's lots of berry bushes in one section are pretty prickly. And Emerson, you're gonna
Okay,
this one.
we had students from every grade, K through 5, help as well as faculty, staff, and parents. And then, again, students got to test out the trail. It was really fun. All students in grade 4 and 5 got to try the trail in June.
Alright, so the building the trail was a huge part of the project, but small in comparison to the amount of work that went into creating these signs. And a huge thanks to the 4th grade team for setting aside time in their day for the students to research the topics. They're going to tell you more about it, so I don't want to spoil it, but really quite a big project.
We worked in groups for many weeks. We had to research the topic and find interesting facts about it.
Whose sign is this? Is this one here?
Columns.
Okay, do you want to take this one? With one student that couldn't make it tonight, that was part
We
of our
had to
plan.
draw the pictures or get prisms to use each one. We drew some of the pictures in art club, and which was a particular art club, and the rest we drew in science class.
Our teacher, Mrs. Killian, generously offered to have art club focus on illustrating the signs to go on our nature trail. So a huge thanks to everyone that's been involved so far. We have lots more ideas that are in the works or on the future ideas list. We've had support every step of the way, and it's been a really fun project to work with everyone on. Also thanks to the families who got their children here tonight to tell our board about this really awesome project. The students at school are so excited whenever they get to go out on the trail or do something that's in our beyond. We have really an amazing piece of property at the elementary school, and they're really enjoying getting to know some new parts of it that haven't been really accessible without the beautiful trail that we built. So I'm looking forward to watching that grow. Any questions for us? Anything anybody wants to add?
I was the first person to crash on the trail.
It's a very safe trail. It's beautiful.
It's safe. He just tried to go off a ramp and then went into the woods.
How close to
It is
completion
beautiful.
is it?
The
Is it
trail is
completed?
complete.
Okay.
The signs are complete. We have the materials we're gonna put a post and have a backing. Sorry, I'm not a carpenter, but there'll be something behind this for strength. So it's on the list of making it happen. But in the meantime, we've enjoyed having them up in our school for everyone to check out. But the idea is that they'll be in locations starting from our building and making kind of a big swirl back to our building, with the last one being on the chicken coop, so that teachers can connect their curriculum. And these are all, the topics were all pulled from our current science curriculum. So a teacher, when they're teaching about habitats, they can go to the sign about habitats, which will be located in a place where you can view the wetlands that's bordering our property, and what a great teaching tool that will be. So that was the idea of each and every sign that has a topic that goes in a certain location. That's what we call place-based education. And
Would you guys mind bringing the signs around so we can take a look?
yeah.
It's kind of similar
Sure.
to our Peninsula Nature Trails here, and
Yes.
and it's just wonderful that the children, these signs are beautiful.
Aren't they great?
And the trail is great fun. I've been on it, and it's a wonderful trail, and I think everyone here, the children and the teachers, you're all to be commended for thinking outside the box and doing this extra work that wasn't, part of your jobs. It's beautiful.
Good job.
And on the bottom, it says who worked on the signs, which to me is just
So do
precious.
you know at least like between that?
One of the things, Mrs. Brown, we should thank Kathy Ford too at Ed Workshop for coming in and spending time with the kids and actually taking all of the artwork and then all of the text that they prepared and putting it together to make it look like that.
It didn't look exactly like
We had a rough draft that went to her and then she helped put it all together.
So Greg, how many signs total are there?
15. 15.
That's quite impressive. To have that many signs on that trail.
Yeah, good.
Any other questions for the group?
Yeah, great job.
Great team.
Thank you.
And it is a school night, so don't mean to be rude, but any students that want to go home and get rest.
And Tate Wardlaw too. Tate had helped out too with teaching.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that workshop. He came in and did a presentation with Kathy and helped them pull it all together. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
You want
this back?
It
looks like a nice job.
Really nice. I saw the original sign, so I know the translation.
They'll be probably in the law school until we get the post up outside.
Great job.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. You're welcome.
There you go. Awesome. Always fun with the children.
You're a tough act to follow.
Yes.
Take a seat, any seat. All right, next on the agenda is the Health and Safety for Buildings and Grounds Quarterly Report. You had in your packet the meetings of this, the meeting minutes. Liam and Jeff were present. Do you have any comments? Or Dana or Roger? Any questions?
I was thinking that Leonard, our leader, could maybe give us an overview.
Give us an overview?
Yes.
Well, if you want me to read the minutes?
In your own words.
How about highlights?
So, while highlights, I think one of the things on the capital projects update there, when we had our meeting with Mosaic and our engineers from Engineering Solutions, we had that issue with the oil tank outside, so our fuel oil tank. So we made an agreement here with them to make that an alternative project, and hopefully that we'll be able to fit it in within the cost that the entire capital project is listed at now. So that was one of the big things that we talked about. Update on the security cameras and surveillance project. We had an additional camera that we added after we had this project started. It was 90% done in the middle high school. We noticed that there was one of the cameras left off the project, so and that hasn't been installed yet to date, but as soon as that gets installed and some of these other issues that we encountered with the project, as soon as that stuff's done, we'll finalize that project. The stone facade emergency project on this crumbling limestone out front, that project was approved the very day we had this meeting. So there's not a whole lot of information yet, but they will be putting out bids and things to get that moving along. And the majority of all of our summer projects were completed. There's at the elementary school, the loop entrance sidewalk still hasn't been done, but we're kind of waiting on the village to help us on that. So we do expect that to get moving, hopefully before, I don't know if it's going to get done before this snow flies here, but it's still on the docket and we're still moving forward with it. Middle high school, of course, we had the fuel tank issue and the interruptions with all the security camera projects that kind of slowed them down this year. They didn't get everything completed they wanted to, but majority of the projects over the summer, they got it done, so. That's really the highlights of the quarterly meeting.
Any questions?
Sorry?
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the treasurer's report, just a brief introduction that this report provides the board with a monthly review of the actual cash on hand, and the current report is through August 31st, and as noted in the executive content, special thank you to Leonard, Dana, Beebe, Betsy, Tracy, and Lori for their work on this report. So, Leonard?
Okay. The balance from the end of July was $3,917,147. Receipts for the month of August were $203,907.60. Disbursements for the month were $1,296,911.01. And our debit memos and credit charges were $794,269.10, leaving an available cash balance for books at the end of August of $3,618,412.69. That's on the per book side. On the bank side, total balance for bank statements is $3,873,783.73, and our reconcilable items were the outstanding checks of $255,371.04, and subtracting that from our total bank statements at the end of August brings it to $3,618,412.69, and as you can see, it balances to a penny with the books. Any questions on that? Thank you.
Right into the budget status report, please.
Okay. Budget status report through August. Put this up here just so I can see it. So year-to-date revenues on our property tax, of course, this was through August. Our property bills didn't go out till September 1st, so you won't see any tax revenue there in August, but after next month, you'll see a tremendous increase there. Charges for service is $34,533. Use of money is $492. Miscellaneous revenues through August were $26,649. State and federal aid is $43,016 for a total of $104,690 through August. That's the year-to-date revenue. Looking at it from last year's report at the same time this year, at the same time, we're just about a little bit ahead of schedule than we were last year. Last year we were at 0.36% collected, and this year we're about a little over 0.5% collected. Any questions on the revenue side? On the expenditure side, salaries through August were $481,003. Employee benefits were $653,638. Our contractual and BOCES expenses were $290,649. Materials and supplies were $48,057. Equipment expense was $16,197. Debt service, $36,905, and textbook expense through August was $901, for a total of $1,527,350. And looking at last year compared to this year, last year we're approximately about 1% higher on the expense side than we were this year at the same time. Any questions on the expense side?
Great. Question sort of off topic, but on topic. Now that we're 17 days into the tax period, are there any significant grievances that you know
Haven't seen any. Well, I mean, the actual grievances will be they'll be
Later on.
coming in, but, not in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we haven't seen anything. They all came right before, basically right around the first week of August, we got a few.
The report of,
Mhm.
okay. And those are in the system, those aren't true grievances?
Right, they're petitions at this point, most of them were petitions. Right off the top of my head, I don't know what the dollar amount is, but overall, we have $375,000 set aside for tax surcharges, and what happens is, the ones that are, a lot of the major ones that are on there, they keep re-petitioning every year. So they'll come off after that third year, and then the fourth year, they come right back on. So there's a lot of them on there that are very, they're just repetitive year after year. But we have to keep a track on, because if they ever do go to court and they get approved, they could go back current year and then 3 prior years. They can go back and collect on all those years, so we have to keep that,
Are
that
these
balance
grievances against their school taxes?
School taxes, yeah, property taxes.
Wouldn't that have gone back in May to grievance day, or is this something totally different?
That's what happens, even some of the small claims, and if there's nothing materialized on the grievances, a lot of these people, they want to go to court, and they get an attorney to file a petition, and then we end up with these petitions and the potential liability at the end. So.
Okay.
Any other questions for Leonard?
I just have a question on tuition.
Mhm.
And I was just wondering, are we expected to be up or down from last year?
It's going to be pretty much the same. Let me get to that section there. The tuition is right there with it's included in the charges for services there. With right now it's $34,000. I don't know exactly how many people haven't paid yet, but the majority of the people have paid their tuition.
Okay.
And so that's included in that $34,000. Let's see, if you go to, tuition, day school, that's all that tuition. It's $34,000. If you go to the actual revenue budget status report, that whole $34,000 is tuition.
That includes our international students. right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
and that's about, you think that's about the same as last year?
Well, last
Or
year,
is that like a number, is that like a?
it varies a little bit depending on how many new students we get, but
Sure.
it's not significantly different.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we did get a couple of late international students.
Oh, nice.
Rolling over
Good.
the summer, and that was it's a really nice thing for our school culture, and actually does boost tuition as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's a win-win.
Any other questions? Very nice final report, Leonard. Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Superintendent report, Roger.
Okay, well, I think last time we met, school had not yet opened. And now school is up and running and moving full speed. So I just thought I'd go over some of the events and activities that are taking place now and in the upcoming weeks. Tomorrow and Thursday, we have a big event for our 6th graders. Our 6th grade students will be taking their annual overnight field trip to Poca-McCready. This is a bonding experience for our 6th graders at the start of their middle school career. And we've been doing it for a number of years. Each year, our 6th grade students raise funds to support this trip. And it's actually they actually raise for the next year, right? So this year's trip is being funded by last year's students and then continue. The Poca-McCready Outdoor Education Center has a program that we tap into. They promote teamwork, self-confidence. They provide good food, supportive staff, and all that helps for a great experience for our kids. Our students and families have been aware of this trip since the spring, and many have been excited about it. I know our teachers are also excited to take the trip. They're getting ready to go tomorrow morning, and our students really benefit from this. So this is a really nice experience for our kids. And I thought that would just open the door for us to talk a little bit more on travel. We do take a number of day field trips, and then we also have some overnight experiences for our kids. In addition to Polk-and-McCrady last summer, a dozen or so of our students spent a week in Quebec as a part of a language and culture immersion experience. That was a great new trip experience for our kids. So we're looking forward to seeing if we can replicate that in the future. We also have trips for a variety of reasons, athletics and music performances. So our cross-country team is going to be traveling to Long Island. And that's an overnight trip for, this is the pre-state meet. In other words, they have the location of this meet is the same location as where the state meet will be. We're anticipating that both our boys and girls teams are going to qualify for the state meet. So our coach is taking them down there for this pre-state meet, and that's a nice experience for them. And then our cross-country team, and a lot of this has been fundraised by the cross-country team over the course of the last year. They're, in addition to that trip, they're also taking a big trip to Florida, where they're going to compete in a interstate meet. That's in the fall, but then in the spring, our chorus is actually going to be participating. Again, they've done this about every 4 years at Disney World, and they're going to be performing there. And that's a spring trip, late March, I believe. What else do we have? Well, you know about our 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C., and that's a fabulous experience for our kids. All of our 8th graders travel to Washington, D.C. For 3 nights and 4 days. We also have day-long field trips. This year we're starting a new one for our 5th grade, taking them to the state capitol in Albany. So I'm hoping that will become a tradition. I was just glancing through some old articles, and I saw an Atlantic Monthly article on student travel, and it's entitled, "Traveling Teaches Students in a Way Schools Can't." And I think that there's some truth in that. And so we have been taking advantage when we can afford to get our kids on the road and see what's out there in the world. I think it's a really important thing for them. And I'm really glad that, that the board's been able to support those efforts, and that our students have had those kinds of opportunities. So nice travel experiences out there, and I'm sure there'll be more to come. Some other things, our music programs are ramping up in the upcoming weeks. They'll be handing out instruments at the elementary school, and then I believe it's next week they have area all-state auditions, and so that's where kids try and gain a place in the area all-state chorus, which comes later in the year. So that is followed by a host of special performances, parades for our marching band, concerts for all of our groups. The music season starts very soon, so that's an exciting thing. This week, open house for our Adirondack Ed Center. That's Thursday, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. if you're interested in attending. Board members are invited to attend. Students and parents are also invited to attend. And that's over in Saranac Lake. Another event I want to highlight for you, next Friday, September 28th, our senior class and the drama club will be performing the Murder Mystery. And you might remember the Murder Mystery annual. We took a year off from that last year, but we're back. And so this year's play is called Meddling Kids, and it's written by high school senior Adeline Perryman. So that's 7 p.m. in the auditorium on September 28th. And I'm going to guess that if it's like our last Murder Mysteries, it will include moving throughout the community to try and solve the mystery and, and pick up some additional clues. So come on out and enjoy the fun for that. What else? That next Saturday, so now we're talking about a week from this weekend, so weekend after next, we'll be hosting a special volleyball tournament. And you've maybe heard this over the years. This is the 5th annual Volley for Nance. It's in honor of the late Nancy Morelli. And this is a fundraiser. Our volleyball team sponsors every year. This year it's going to raise funds for 3 different groups. One is the Lake Placid Library, where Nancy Morelli worked. The second one is our backpack food program that helps students in need. And the third one is the McKillop family offering to help support Sarah and her family as Sarah continues to struggle with cancer. So volley for Nance next Saturday, the 29th. Finally, this Friday is a half day for students because the rest of the day is dedicated to professional development for our faculty and staff. Most of the day is going to be dedicated to grade level and team collaboration meetings. So we have groups of our faculty members getting together to work on programs, build programs, develop curriculum, those kinds of things. So that's the focus, but we will also be including informational sessions on a number of things, including e-cigarettes and vaping, designing Google websites, building level safety team meetings, and that will precede our district level safety team meeting, and then information on the Teacher Center resources that are available to teachers in the region. And finally, I think Rick said it before, but this is the last meeting for an important person here. That's Leonard. Leonard has been working in the school district now. It's his second career. It's probably like your third or fourth career, but it's his second career. 10.5 years for the school district. 10.5 years in which we went from some financial instability to much financial stability here in the school district. We have many thanks to Leonard for all his efforts this now and for the last 10.5 years. I know I speak for many when I say thank you very much for all that you have done, and that you're going to be missed here.
Thank you. Yeah,
And Karen may have something additional planned for after the meeting. And that's how we know.
Thank you, Ed. Next up is information for the board. This is intended to keep the board up to date on current events happening in the district. Tonight's report includes enrollment information, which gives a historical perspective from prior to my graduation, believe it or not, 1973, through present day. So that chart is there. It also has 2 links to separate articles related to the enrollment throughout the Adirondacks. So, also, as Roger already mentioned, there's an information and an invitation to the open house at the Adirondack Ed Center this Thursday from 4 to 6. And please feel free to stay on. The meeting starts at 7. It's exciting. It's something you all should see. So, the culinary students put on a real nice sugar spread from 4 to 6, so come enjoy that. Enjoy that if you can. So, any questions, comments on? Roger, would you like to say anything on the enrollment?
Just that I provided you a link to a study that was done and completed a few years ago. And that can provide you with, I think, a really strong background in the regional issues in terms of declining enrollment. All or most of our Adirondack school districts have seen that kind of decline over the years. And so there's many factors at play, and I think sometimes we get stuck looking at just our local issues. We have local issues, other districts do too. But I think it's really important to see a little wider. And that study is pretty thorough. So I would encourage you to take a look and dig in a little bit. And you can even see that Lake Placid's enrollment decline kind of falls somewhere in the middle. And that the couple of districts that have increased enrollment over that time period are very small districts, and they've actually taken advantage of the international student program in order to build their enrollment. So again, some interesting things to look at in that stuff.
It is interesting because it's somewhat sobering to think that we've had a 33% drop in enrollment in 15 years.
Yeah, exactly.
That's wow. I mean, there's, like you said, Roger, there's a lot of factors that go into that. But it is rather sobering to see that decline go down like that.
Anything else? Great. Linking goals with agenda items. I have a list here, but does anybody go through mine and then see it? Okay, sure. The Lake Placid Elementary School Trails presentation linking to students first and foremost, objectives 2 and 4. Covered 2 with that one. That's great. Health and safety Health and safety buildings and grounds report, links to community outreach, objective 6. And finance, the last objective. I think you had that on the agenda, Karen. Thank you. I don't know if it was volitional or not. What's coming up as a student resource officer, I would apply that to students first and foremost. The anti-bullying proclamation will fall under students first and foremost. And lastly, it was pointed out several meetings ago, and I'm not sure if it was during session or after adjournment, but it was pointed out that there's the organizational chart is up on the wall. And that was one of our objectives, to make sure there was a leadership goal. So even though it's not in the agenda, it should be pointed out that we did achieve, or someone achieved that. I'm not sure whose artistry that is. Is that part of the PhD program?
I believe that was the UPS stores are.
The UPS store, okay. Does anyone have anything else?
I think you covered them all.
Okay, I did find this one. Somebody else is up next, Bob. Okay. All right. Moving on to discussion. Topic of school resource officer was brought up at the September 4th meeting, as you may recall, and it was unanimous that we should further discuss this issue with the goal of reaching consensus regarding our district's position. Coincidentally, Chief Deputy of Essex County Sheriff's Department Major David Reynolds and Lake Placid Police Department Deputy Chief Chuck Dobson visited Roger shortly after our meeting, which is fate in and of itself, I guess. There's also 2 articles related to SROs in the schools. Hopefully you've had a chance to read those. Major Reynolds has taken time out of what I'm sure is a very busy schedule to come up and discuss this matter with us and discuss the potential for a county-funded SRO program. So, if you have anything else to add, Roger?
I think, first of all, thank you very much, Major Reynolds, for being willing to come on up here in the evening after coaching 5th and 6th graders, I believe it was. Really appreciate that. Really appreciated the meeting last week. The board wanted to talk about this issue, and I think it's an important one to talk about. Certainly, it's out there in our regional school districts and well beyond that, right? So, and I think many districts are looking at this different way, and so I think it really is important that the board consider what our options are, and what kind of direction that you want to take. I tried to provide you with just a little background, because sometimes we start talking about school resource officers and not school resource officers. Sometimes you can lose track of some of the other issues that are involved, and that includes some of the things that were in the articles that we shared with you and probably were able to read about school climate issues and communication issues. There's some additional pieces in that New York Times article I posted for you. So. In the midst of all this, Major Reynolds and Deputy Chief Dobson came by, and we had a discussion about school resource officers, because it's very much on the mind of Major Reynolds. And it wasn't just a matter of whether we were talking about school resource officers or not, but I thought that he could hopefully provide us with a little more context in terms of that. If you don't mind me just real briefly, Major Reynolds was a school resource officer for number of years. I'm going to say in that post-Columbine time period, and has I think a really interesting perspective on not just whether there's a person there or not, but how is the school resource officer become a part of the school community, and what kind of role might be beneficial versus other roles that might not be beneficial. So that being said, Rick, I don't know how you want to start the conversation, but
I think
Wanna start with-
presentation would be great.
Yeah, would you mind then starting and telling us about what some of your ideas have been and
Sure.
and
So,
what you've been talking about with me at least?
again, I'm Dave Reynolds with the Essex County Sheriff's Office. I'm in a unique position right now because I've been with the Sheriff's Office for 20 years, and the current sheriff is retiring, and I'm running for sheriff, and at this point, I'm uncontested, so in meeting with the sheriff, he's allowed me to go forward with some of my ideas. So out talking to people about what their biggest concerns were, the two biggest things were drugs and school safety. I've been the head of the drug task force for 10 years in Essex County, and I was a school resource officer from 2000 to 2005. So I feel like I have a pretty good background in both areas. The sheriff has allowed me to create my own budget coming into the next year, and the first thing I wanted to address was the school resource officer program. So with moving some things around with our budget and doing some things, I've been able to at least I'm asking for, with the Board of Supervisors, I'm creating this program that's going to provide a school resource officer to every single public school in Essex County for 20 hours a week. To do that, it's going to take me hiring 6 people, a mixture of correction officers and deputies. But it's a big ask with the county. I don't know that they're going to go for it, and part of what I'm doing now is I'm reaching out to all the school boards, the superintendents, schools where I worked, to try to garner support. So that's why Assistant Chief Dobson and I came and talked with Dr. Catania to let them know what my idea was. A lot of schools, not a lot, a few schools have put money forward already where they want to have an armed guard in the schools. That's not what my program is. It's not armed guards. Yes, they're going to be a police officer in your school. They're going to have a gun, but they're more than an armed guard. They're, my goal is they're going to be a member of your school community, your village of Lake Placid, any school district they work in. They're going to be a member of the community, so they're going to fit in with everything. So the way I did the program when I was younger, I did everything. I would go eat with all the kids during lunchtime. I'd read to the kindergartners, fairly educated, so I would go teach a physics class, teach them how my radar worked. I would ride the bus occasionally. I would go to their sporting events after school. I would teach a government class, search and seizure, Fourth Amendment. So I was a very active school resource officer, and that's the way I envision the program. I don't want somebody who's just going to be standing at a door waiting for an active shooter, because the odds are that's not going to happen. This is, the ancillary benefits of having an officer in the school, building the relationships that, have kind of gone sour over the last 10, 15 years between law enforcement and the public. That's more of what this program is to me. It's going to be a tough sell with the county because I'm going to ask, again, for 6 bodies. And the budget, I've already submitted the budget, and it was under $500,000 to create everything, vehicles, equipment, bodies, the salary. And again, I'm hoping for support from the board and from the superintendent to just maybe a letter of support saying, we think this is a good idea. So one example I've given to everybody is, so I was a resource officer in Woolsboro School, Keene, Westport. I did a little bit in Crown Point. And so back in June, I was in Woolsboro School mentoring for something else, and this student teacher came up to me. And she said, "Do you remember me?" I said, "Of course I do, you're so-and-so." "You remember the first time you ever hollered at me?" I'm like, "No." I'm thinking, what did I do? Because I'm kind of a big goofball, and I play a lot with kids. I figured I did something that stuck in her memory. She says, "Well, the first time I met you, I was at a bridge dedication for a relative of hers that died in Afghanistan. And she ran out on the road, and I grabbed a hold of her, and I yanked her back." all I did was lecture her, like gently, just, people care about you. I didn't holler or anything like that. She said, that interaction has stuck with me. I mean, she's a 22-year-old girl now who's in, college. She's going to, I think, some criminal justice courses. So the thing I want to get out of the program is to have the people in the school to make those interactions, not the armed guard. I see all these articles where they're calling them armed guards. No, we're a police officer in the school. We're just a gentler, version of the police officer. That's kind of my spiel. So if you have any questions, I can kind of.
You said you're looking at CIs and retired?
No.
No, okay.
No, this is, so they would be existing staff that would go into a school.
Okay.
So experienced people, deputies that we already have that would work in the school, not retired. So there's issues with that, and we can talk about it if you want, but my people would be full-time deputy sheriff. So you, most likely, if Bloomingdale, Saranac Lake School Board, which is meets tomorrow, they decide they want to go along with it and this gets approved, you would share that officer with them, most likely. So you would get 20 hours a week, they would get 20 hours a week. It's not going to be a set schedule because you want to make it random so that if somebody has some nefarious thoughts, they're not going to know exactly when the officer's going to be there. So they're going to be experienced people that we already have working for us. We're just going to hire new correction officers to free up the deputies and a couple deputies to backfill.
So schools open from, I don't know, it's 6 something in the morning till sometimes 10 o'clock at night. And 20 hours a week is a very small slice of that. So how do we come up with that particular number, and is there research to say that's?
I would love to provide you with 80 hours a week, but 20 hours was the,
So
again, I'm a brand new politician, I'm not a politician, I'm a police officer, but I'm trying to learn. Me asking for $500,000, I feel is gonna make some people not like me. So that's the 20 hours is 500,000. If I was to ask for 40 hours a week,
$1 million.
It'd probably be a little less, when you figure everything out, but.
Sure.
Again, Essex County it's the second largest county in New York State. It's 1,800 square miles.
Size-wise, yeah.
Size-wise, so there's no easy way to do anything. There's 13 schools that we have to cover.
Right.
Dave, how many school districts are you dealing with your $500,000? How many do you?
We would cover 13
allocated
schools.
Okay. And
So unfortunately, like Lake Placid, we have the elementary and the high school. I don't have enough. I can't give you an officer there and one here, if this goes through.
if it did go through, do you foresee, for example, Roger, that this would be split between the two buildings somehow? Maybe not equal, but something.
I would think, yes.
Okay. I do think your philosophy behind this of not having the so-called armed guard that's standing at the door, that people are going to be in there building relationships with these students. I think that's just an integral part of the program, and the thought process behind it is that you're going to accomplish much more from building relationships with students than you are having someone just standing inside the door.
And that was the original intent of the program. So I went to the school back in 2000, and that was the original intent, but I was a young guy, and I was stuck in the school, so I was a quick learner, and I wanted to do things. I think where the program fails sometimes, they stick the retired person in there who just wants to ride out the retirement, because it's an easy gig. I go to school, I eat in the cafeteria with the kids, and sit with the secretary and have coffee. That's not the way I envision it.
So you have to, it'd be very interesting to see some of the data that's out there that talks about the schools that have had so-called officers in the building and it wasn't effective. Was it the typical officer that was sitting there at the door armed, or was it someone like yourself that got out and got to know the students in the building? And so, I don't know, I just find that would be very interesting.
And that's where me trying to convince the board of supervisors, so there's 18 of them, I have to convince them that this is a good idea. And everybody's data driven. There's no data to show how successful I was as a school resource officer. I think I was pretty successful.
Right.
Because I can go to any one of my schools, and now there's kids there that you know, their parents were in school when I was the school resource officer, and I don't know, I feel it was a successful program when I did it.
Dave, what happened to the program?
So it was a COPS grant. It was a 4-year grant that was 3 years federally funded, 1 year by the county. And then we went to the schools and we said, help us, can we do this? A couple of them forked some money over, most of them did not. So they made it survive another year, and then it just, the money dried up. So my plan, obviously some schools can afford this. Screw Lake has budgeted for 2 officers already. My feeling is I want to produce a program that's equitable and sustainable. If a school board, if you guys decide, you know what, we want to pay $50,000 this year for a school resource officer. So I go out and I get somebody and we get them in here. You have to reach a supermajority next year if you have to go over the tax cap to keep that officer. It's going to be the first thing cut. So it's not very sustainable if the school boards and the schools have to foot this bill.
No, I think that this should definitely come from the sheriff's department. Because given the position of the sheriff as the highest law enforcement officer, or maybe it's the DA, but either way, the highest, and elected, most importantly, responsible to citizens of Essex County. I would be absolutely opposed if it was the state troopers or some other organization that didn't have, wasn't responsible to its constituency as much as the sheriff. So I think it's a great idea. My question would be, I guess I'd be concerned that an officer would make a mountain out of a molehill. If there was kids roughhousing in the hallway, are they going to arrest them for assault, assault third, or so I guess that would be my concern,
So there's
to exercise their judgment of when is this appropriate for the superintendent or principal to take care of it, and when is this a law enforcement issue?
We have a great deal of discretion, and when I was in the schools, I did too. So the superintendent is acting in local parentis. He is the parent when they're at school. Roughhousing, that's not going to be an issue. I mean, there were times kid caught with marijuana. Sit down with the superintendent. And every officer's going to be different, so I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, of course.
But I would sit with the superintendent, and some kids, we wanted to get the ball rolling with some services, so we made the arrest. Most kids, we probably didn't, because the punishment in school and with the parents is worse than what you're going to get in the criminal justice system, and why with certain things. So there's a great deal of discretion. I don't want to say black and white what kids are going to get arrested for or not, but with Lake Placid PD being right across the road, and this is just me, I would envision it more as if there's a crime, we bring them in, let them be the bad guy, arrest the kid, or if they need to be arrested, and we're a support to that.
So my question then, I guess to follow up on what Lee was saying, there's a boundary between your jurisdiction and the school's jurisdiction on these issues. How is that defined? I mean, clearly crimes are crimes, and being a law enforcement officer at a school, do they have the discretion to say, we don't care what the school's position is on this, it's a crime that we're going to, arrest? How much control does the district have, does the school itself have in handling these situations on a case-by-case basis?
If it's a crime, then we can arrest.
You can, but who has the call on that?
It'd be the officer. Ultimately, me, because I would be the boss, the supervisor, but that's a call between the superintendent.
Well, that's my question.
Every situation is different. I can't give you a black and white. Honestly, if it's a UPM.
What's a UPM?
Possession of marijuana.
Okay.
Probably not going to.
Wouldn't we defer though to the superintendent and to the locals?
Just to provide some context, we work with our local police on these matters all the time.
Right.
And really, you've probably been the point person on this for the last 5 years.
And generally, anything like that, like with marijuana or whatever, I notify the police and have the police come to deal with the drug itself and stuff like that. Whether it's arrests, it's up to the police officer. And in my 5 years here, the only time an arrest has been made is if they've been over the age of 16 and is really more of a, and it's not like they even arrest them right then and there and walk them out.
No.
It's, all right, call your parents, bring them in, we're gonna go over to the police station and we're gonna go through the process and that's it. But, I mean, right now, we call the police on any matter that we see could be potentially a crime.
And it's part of the code of conduct.
Yep.
It can be a very effective deterrent for the future too. So, you're right, yeah, the police don't arrest every kid that they interact with, but the presence of the police sometimes has been very effective. That's especially the case when, we're on that line and we want to make sure that this kid doesn't get the wrong message, because the next time they do it out in the community at age 18, it could be a really serious consequence.
And I think we're gonna look at the liability. If we don't do something for certain things, if somebody comes in with a weapon, the liability on us, if, okay, we knew he came in on September 15th, but then January 20th he comes in again and does something. We didn't do anything the first time. I think there's no black and white answer. But I think the officer's gonna look at the liability, and obviously everything's gonna go through the superintendent to discuss what the best course of action is.
And certainly, if you're the sheriff of Essex County and you're saying our role here is to build connections and to be a member of the community and community police, I mean, I think your officers will abide by that. They should anyway. I mean, you're the boss. Right. Another question is, are you getting any support from the district attorney on this?
I haven't sought support from her.
Okay. Because I feel like, she also would have discretion. Well, on age, I'm not quite sure who's got the discretion now. Either the county or the district attorney, but have you had any of those discussions to see how they...
On the raise the age issues?
No, on the resource officer.
No.
No, okay.
So, this all really has come about really, really quickly. I met with you, a couple weeks ago? So within the past month and a half, maybe 6 weeks, I've met with every single superintendent in Essex County. I've met with a number of the school boards. I'm still running for sheriff, and I'm still doing my job, so I have been everywhere talking about this, trying to, I've got enough positive feedback that this is what people want, so now I'm pushing for it. So I haven't reached out to the DA. I'm pretty sure she would be supportive of it.
So when you did this, I think in Willsboro and Keene, what did you look like in the school? How were you dressed? How did you look to the kids, I guess?
Had my uniform on,
Yeah.
gun, all the equipment.
Okay.
So I'd go in the gym class, I'd play basketball with a gun on. I'd go into the shop class and we'd build a chair.
Mhm.
I looked like a police officer.
Okay.
You have a really clear vision of what success looks like in this role,
Yes.
and it's really compelling. How do you think you're going to be able to translate that to your employees?
It's tough. I mean, I have high standards. I don't know that everybody's not going to get me in the school. I think I did an exceptional job, and it's going to be on me. And so, for each school, I would involve the superintendent and say, this is the guy or girl that I have picked out for your school. We're going to sit down and any questions he has, and any of the board wants to be involved, hammer them. And
It's probably not our place to do that.
no, but so I don't have, and again, this is so new. I don't have the checks and balances in place to make sure they're doing the job right. So some type of evaluation evaluation, but, that's, let me get it first, and then I'm gonna try to build that of how we make sure we're holding them accountable and doing a good job. He's gonna be representing me, the sheriff's office, the school. So, you try to hire the best employees you can, and I think I have a good group of employees right now. So,
Thank you.
Do you have the capability to tap into the people that you are considering hiring that are more considered local to the area, so that some of these people are familiar with the families and the schools, and it's not someone that's driving up from Westport that's coming here to the Lake Placid School, and we might have someone more local that is familiar with our community, and we talk about building those relationships.
the problem is, we're the county. We pay really low wages. So we get nobody from Lake Placid to come work for us. I think the closest, nobody's within 30 miles of here, I don't think. So you're not gonna get a local person because it doesn't pay enough to travel to Lewis every day for a job. So you're gonna get somebody that possibly lives in Mariah or Lewis, Elizabethtown. I mean, ideally, you would want somebody who was already embedded in the community, but I can tell you, I didn't know anybody in Keene when I started there. I can go into Keene School right now, and it's, a lot of the same people.
Any other questions, John? Any questions?
I like your idea, though. I do like the idea.
My wheels have been turning over. A lot of my family is in law enforcement, and I know that some of them could do the job, but I know others would be the last person they put here.
I know.
So I think his compassion in choosing the right people is, I don't see a problem with that.
Right, and we have both. We have people that are gonna do excellent, and we have some that, I don't care if you want the job, you're not gonna get it. You just,
Is there additional training that they'll have to go through?
There is. So I went to New Orleans for a week for school resource officer training. I don't know that it taught me anything really. They do a week's training, but
It's not required.
I don't think it's required. It might be required to have like the certificate that says you're an SRO, but, and we would provide training.
Sure.
Because with school law and everything, especially now with raise the age going on, there's a lot of things you need to learn, truancy and all that stuff, what you can do.
I'll be the first to say I was somewhat opposed to SROs, and the more I've read and just researched, I mean, I think the armed guard I'm totally opposed to, but true resource officers. I think I told Roger, when I was in school, we had an SRO. Not really, he was a janitor, but
He got pushed into the elevator.
yeah,
and it was
basically he knew everything that was going on because he had such a relationship with all the kids. They'd come tell him just about everything. And he was on top of it, telling the principal and the vice principal. That sort of, thank goodness he didn't carry a gun, but from a personality standpoint, he was a great fit. So, I mean, and that sounds like that's the direction you're headed in. That's great.
Now, did you say we were going to share with Saranac Lake? Is your thought?
So, every other school district so far has given me a letter of support, except for Lake Placid and Saranac Lake. So, the only thing in Essex County for Saranac Lake is the Bloomingdale Elementary. So, they don't know. I haven't had a chance to speak to the board yet, so I don't know whether they're gonna be
I forgot
opposed.
they're in Essex County, whereas there are other schools in Franklin.
So if they were to decline, then now that opens up a 20-hour slot, so you would probably, my thought, would I give somebody to Lake Placid for both schools 40 hours. geographically speaking, that's the easiest. You know, I've kind of thought it out in my head of who to put, you know, how to put schools together. Scream Lake's out in the middle of nowhere, so they're like the toughest one. But obviously you match up with who we get all the best.
Right.
Anything else for Andrew Reynolds?
Thanks. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming in, Dave. Thanks for helping. We'll be in touch again soon.
All right.
Okay.
And you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Just move to the next boarding event.
No, yeah. All right. Before it doesn't come.
I know. You missed a good night. Send an email.
Then it's just us.
I mean, I guess one question to finalize with the discussion might be, how do you want to proceed? You know, when we put this discussion on the agenda, we didn't have somebody come in. It was really a board discussion. It was really to sort of get a sense as to future direction. So this sort of crunches it into a much tighter time slot. And, you know, so it might be something that, you know, we want to figure out what and when to act. I mean, he certainly is asking us for a letter of support, and I think we would have to decide, the board would have to decide whether or not you want to extend that, you know, that kind of support.
I would like to see us, you know, maybe no one will show up, they never seem to, but hopefully I would like to see community members come in here and tell us what they, I would like to hear from the community members.
Well, we've been on the board for 4 years, and you can say that again, because they don't show up.
I know. It's a really important issue, and I would like, and I feel real, you know, I'd feel more comfortable, I knew if.
On this topic, I think they might. I think that
I
one
think
thing.
you're right, yeah.
I think it's interesting that if he is able to get the Board of Supervisors to agree to this, it's kind of like a win-win. It wouldn't cost us anything. But I do want to say that at some point, if that goes the wayside and districts then are entertaining the idea and absorbing the cost themselves, I would much rather see a more local team of people that are vested in our community, know our families, know perhaps even the buildings. And I just think at that point, if it ever turns into a situation where our taxpayers are paying for it and we've agreed to do this, that we should look more locally. There's, like Joni said, she can name numerous members of her family, as can I, and other people that I can roll right through my head right now that would be excellent in that role. And I just think that they would have a vested interest in the children in the community and know who they are.
I would just like to caution everyone that this is something that looks like it needs to happen sort of soon, and I think this, to me, seems very broad brush in terms of what they're presenting, in terms of how they're going to implement it. I don't think there's any plan here. I'd be very reluctant to sign on to something like this without a lot more thought put into it and a lot more detail, saying this is how this looks, this is how it's going to be implemented, this is how we're going to do it, and this is how it's going to look, and all that kind of stuff. And none of that came out in this presentation. So I do think we do. This is a very important thing. We do need this. We're going to be paying for it one way or the other. And 20 hours is going to cost you $40,000 a year. Should we be paying $80,000 for 40 hours? And if that's the case, we can just hire that person. Do we need, you know, law enforcement in the school? Maybe we do. I'm not saying we do or don't. But I'm not very convinced, based on what I just heard, that that's the direction we should go. I think we should really look at this and talk it through a little bit more. I think we should act on it at some point in the near future, but this may not be I don't want to be kind of squeezed into a decision in the next couple of weeks based on an election schedule. That's kind of my position, so.
And I think that the discussion was conceptually, do we agree or not with a conceptually on resource officer?
Then I think I agree.
Whether it's coming from the sheriff's office or it's coming from our own budget or what have you. And I just remind you that where this all came up is BOCES is talking about it, so it's close. Saranac Lake is talking about it.
Sure.
So it's all around us, so it's only a matter of time that we...
Oh, I think we should do it. I just don't know if that's the venue that we
Sure.
should be.
And
it could be.
I'm not sure if a letter of support commits us to anything, and I guess
Okay,
that's.
I'm okay with that, but.
I think it'll be interesting when he presents to the board of supervisors.
Sure.
And see the response from them.
But then on the flip side, we write a letter of support for.
And then we say no.
Or his program doesn't go.
Right.
The constituents have a right to say, well, you're supporting of it, so where are you going to come up with the funds to?
Well, you have to come up with the funds one way or the other, right?
He's proposing
The county pays.
through the county.
Right, right.
Yeah. And so the county can raise its budget.
But he's
based
saying he
on
wants the
the
schools
vote
to
of the
take
supervisor,
in
not
some
the vote of
money on
people.
this.
Yeah.
I mean, so clearly, there's a financial obligation for everybody who's gonna sign up. I don't know what it is, but the other thing too, I think it's like, why 500,000 for a budget for 13 schools? It's 40,000 a school. I mean, go big. I mean, why not go for 2 million and do it right?
Why 20 hours? I mean, someone's going to say
Right,
20 hours.
I just don't get the sense that it's well thought out. It's a great idea, but I think maybe with 13 schools, if you're looking at a person ahead, I mean, what's it cost? $80,000 with benefits, roughly, 60, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
So why not present that and say 80,000 a school, and the county picks an X amount, it's 100, so 1.3 million is our budget for this thing. I don't know, I just didn't get the sense it was like kind of under thought out, just my interpretation of it. So. for what it's worth.
He's to be commended though for putting
No, I
one
think it's
foot
a
out,
great
yeah,
idea.
definitely.
I think it's a
No,
great,
yeah.
great
Yeah,
concept, I just don't
absolutely.
know that that's the,
I don't know, we'll see.
So direction, do you want to hold off, writing a letter of support? Do you
Do you have to vote on that? Like,
probably do?
but tonight we don't.
Next,
Yeah.
no, no.
I wasn't recommending, I just
No,
thought
no.
that this discussion
Sure.
to figure out how and.
Sure.
Right.
You know.
So I guess do we make a, a public plea to come give your input for the school resource officer at the next meeting? Do we vote on it the next meeting?
our next meeting's in Wilmington.
Wilmington, right?
This is like a tall
Right. Anybody?
Get more people there.
Right, right. So we should hold off even with the letter of support is what you're suggesting.
I would think, yeah, I just don't.
Okay.
But I think we should really continue the
Continue to-
conversation
sure,
aggressively because it's important. I just don't know that I want to jump the gun here.
Okay.
I think it's just one person on 7, so
Right,
please
sure.
speak
Oh,
up.
no, everybody's got the floor.
And the other thing you could do is have do a presentation for both Wilmington and class and give people opportunities to.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. The more information that's out there, the more people involved, the better the decision I think you're going to get. And the more information, the more feedback you get too. I'm kind of with you too. I really don't feel good about having like someone with a gun in school. It sends the wrong message.
saying that.
You're going to have parents that will not like that idea
Yeah,
of
and
someone
some will,
sitting there
that's the other
because-
side of it, but, yeah, I just don't, or if it is, let's not be overt about it.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that was a good question. I mean, how are you gonna be? And I was like, I thought he was gonna be dressed just like that.
That's
You
what
would
I
know.
would think, yeah.
You would know the difference, you know?
I want you to look like a teacher.
Yeah.
That's my own personal
Yeah,
opinion.
with a tie and.
Yeah.
It's tough, especially with the little ones, that they see somebody in the school, with a gun on all the time. You
Yeah.
just, I don't know, I think.
Well, Roger, you've done this for years, I mean, what is your thought on that? Because that's a good point. What do the little kids think about police officers? Was it a good thing or a bad thing?
Maybe
either.
We've had police officers in the school a number of times, last year, the end of the year, we had police officers in the school for much of the day here and part of the day at the elementary school. I think the kids were pretty comfortable here. They've gotten used to the officer. We're talking about Lake Placid Police Department. Although the last week of school, we also had a deputy sheriff there as well. So that familiarity has sort of, I think, provided some level of acceptance and comfort for our student body. Not 100%. I've heard people make that very same point, which is they just, they don't want to go to the school no matter who has it.
Yeah.
Right, and so there's, that perspective certainly out there. I think Saranac Lake's probably on the fence on this, and I think that they're probably looking just at that one point, is whether or not, welcome on a regular basis, somebody with a gun in the school. And I think that's kind of the issue. And that's really where a lot of the discussions have gone, which is, do we want somebody with a weapon in the school? basis. And that's, so I think, you know, that's something to think about. What he offers, of course, is a different perspective on that, and I think he provided that.
Sure.
Armed guard versus something in the middle versus nothing. So.
And my thought, if he's in the gym class, and there's an incident somewhere, somebody has to get to him, and the police are right across the street, so it's like, who can get there first, you know? So, I don't know, I'm on the fence with the whole, the police officer and the things.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't want to sound naive. We generally don't. We generally don't need a police officer in the school.
Yeah.
We're a safe, calm, secure environment. What we have is heightened tensions. What we have is great awareness whenever anything happens. What we have had is one scary moment, which wasn't really a direct threat, but it was a weapon, right? So I think perception is one of the things that we're talking about here. The perception of safety versus actual safety. I do believe that our schools are safer than they've ever been. And so I don't really think that an officer with a gun provides, you know, some kind of obvious protection against some obvious incident. Not that something could happen anywhere, anytime something could happen, but that's also been the case for the last number of years. So I think what we're talking about here is perception, and I think climate matters the most, and I think that if we conceptualize a school resource officer as somebody who could actually improve the climate, then I could be behind that. But if a school resource officer brought in a sense of, you know, confinement, a sense of, you know, overly rigid environment, then I think that would be a problem. Smiling faces, people who know our kids and know our teachers and know our staff, who come through. Yes, they have a weapon, and
but that's
they walk
different.
through the
That's
hall,
not
and that's
on a
been
daily
a
basis.
good experience.
Right. That's
But we don't
coming
want
in.
to pay for just perception. I mean, is anyone willing to pay just for creating the perception that someone and we're more safe? And I don't really know that they would want to. And I think that the bottom line is, I think most people would agree, if someone wants to hurt children, they're going to hurt them. They're going to find a way. And having a resource officer in the building, I hate to say it, is probably not going to prevent it, and that's just my own opinion. But I don't know if it's perception that we're going for to create kind of maybe perception illusion that we're protected. I don't know if that's really
So I think
a sound
I think the
reason.
thing is the gun gives you the perception/illusion that you're protected. The other thing, though, I think, is to have someone whose sole job is to focus on security. That's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
That's gun excluded. If that's the job to make sure that this perimeter is secure, that's a good thing. You know, but I don't think you need to be armed, and I don't know that having a weapon is going to, like you said, prevent anything from happening. But having someone who's actually responsible for making sure the space is safe, because everybody else is doing other things. They're doing administration, they're doing teaching, they're doing everything, maintenance. But to have somebody whose job is security, that's important. I think that's a focus. To have a weapon on the campus is not necessarily going to save anybody's life. And yeah, it is an illusion, I think, of security. And to me, it's not an illusion at all. I think it doesn't do a damn thing. So that's my opinion. Yeah, I don't want to, like, I know the tensions are high. I don't want to jump the gun on this. I think security is important. I think we've moved a lot to make the building more secure. Having someone do that full time, that's important too. How we do it's another question.
Well said. Good. Thank you. So we'll put it on the agenda for Wilmington and Finland class.
I think by all means, though, we should talk about it, even through email and stuff.
Sure,
and
sure.
keep everybody in. Everybody has to be in the loop, though. It's got to be across the board if we do that. 'Cause I think it's important.
Yeah, it's important to know what the public thinks too. I mean,
Sure.
it is an illusion, or it can present a false sense of security if just because of guns. You're right.
I don't think that's.
And
Unless you have like armed guards posted all around the place like a prison, that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't want to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I had 2 foster kids in my home, and I struggled to get them to go and talk to a police officer, because in their minds, they were the ones that removed them from their house.
Sure.
They wanted nothing to do with a police officer in uniform. So thankfully, knowing some, get them to come over to the house in plain clothes. Get to know the person, and then you see them in uniform and, you know, build that relationship. So I know there's kids, you know, young kids that would be scared to death to have an armed person in uniform in school.
But I don't think having like our local police come to school periodically as,
Yeah,
they're part of our community, and that's a good thing. I think, and we do that already.
right.
So that's part of like know who they are, and this is, they're here to help you, they're here to protect you. That's
Right.
different though, that's not having an armed guard
Guard
saying,
there,
we're gonna protect you if somebody
Every
breaks
day.
in. It's totally different, I think.
Roger, what was the program that, prior to my sister Carol retiring from the local police department, she came into the school, and there was a program that she came in, and it was through the county where she was coming into the school, and it was a few years ago. Do you
Dare.
remember what it was, and did she come in uniform when she came into the school?
was it part of DARE?
It was part of that.
Like the state trooper?
No.
No,
Yeah,
that would be DARE.
It was the program, Roger, that I think you were on that committee, and I don't know, but she came into the
Part of
school, it was part of a
CYC?
grant, CYC
Is it
maybe?
part of the state West program?
But she
I really
came
don't
in
know.
and she did,
Yeah, I don't know.
and I just was curious if she came in uniform as part of that, or, I don't know, I just.
Wasn't that after she left the police department?
It could have
Yeah, okay.
been, after
Yeah,
she
she was part
retired,
of,
think
she was
she was in
pretty, so
uniform.
she was working for CYC at the
Okay.
time.
and she came in.
And she wasn't in the uniform.
And she wasn't, okay.
She really kind of played an organizational role.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and she had an office in the guidance office.
Yeah, I was just curious what role she played, and if it was prior to her. I know, it's a tough thing.
But clearly important.
Yeah, it's a tough subject.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item for discussion is ID cards for board members. Should Board of Education members have ID cards to wear in public events that would identify them as board members? Opinions on such?
Oh, I was thinking about like the swipe cards to get in the building. It's like a pain in the neck on Saturday for Science Olympiad for me to get in all the time. I gotta like call upstairs. You gotta come down 3 flights of stairs, open the door, and then we're like propping it open with rocks and it's breaking all of our security. So.
I just think, I think I brought this up to Rick, not for any entrance to buildings or for the ability to wander the hallways.
No.
But when you go to things, I know that I get it sometimes because people know that all of our children are grown and they don't make the connection to what I'm doing there. So I will get asked, what are you doing here? And so sometimes it would be nice to have like a little something on that says, you know, I'm a board member and I'm here because I'm interested, I want to go to the game or I want to go to a play, and I'm not being asked, well, your kids are graduated, what are you doing in the building? So that's where.
Like show your papers.
No, I was just like, what are you doing here? Well, so I don't know, it seems other boards and other schools do have some kind of an ID, and I didn't know if that was something appropriate or usual or not usual.
I think a district this size is probably unusual, but I don't have an opinion one way or the other, really.
You give me one, I won't wear it. However, the swipe card would be good.
He wants his to wander the hallway.
No, just to get in that one door so I can go to like volunteer.
So, you know, it might be a question, you know, when you think about some of the NISBA guidance that we get on these kinds of issues, right? About when you're a private citizen and when you represent the school board.
Yes.
And it probably comes down to, you should have that, you could have that if you wanted to, when you're representing the school board, and then probably not when you're not. And I guess we have to kind of think about it.
Like you don't want to be showing up at stores buying beer with your
Right.
board. Right.
Good point.
So,
Not to mention, you'll double the number of people
Yeah.
who bend your ear. Right?
Oh, you.
I think that's a good point. When are
That's
you a
kind of
school
what-
board member?
Yeah,
and
whether,
when are
you know,
not?
because that's sort of the deciding
Right.
point.
Right, yeah, no, that's exactly the point.
So maybe we don't need them.
Well, a week ago during open house, I got asked, you know, are you here as a parent or a board member? Well, parent first.
Well, sure, yeah, that,
You know.
I get that all the time too. but-
Yeah.
Well, how about like t-shirts?
Yeah.
Well, you go, you know the umbrella that we gave you?
Yeah.
I love the
Put
umbrella.
that.
I wondered why I had that.
I've seen
Where
too
did you
many of
get it?
those.
Right, they're gonna get handcuffed in the hallway.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
know
where
that.
did you get that from? I go,
I don't know.
Any other comments?
I mean, could people individually do it?
Sure.
You know, like maybe Colleen wants one, but Joan doesn't.
Or, I think if we do it, we should just do it, and then we choose not those that don't choose to wear it. I think I would caution those who are wearing it, right back to NISBA, you know, are you representing, you know, are you there to see the play because you want to see the play as a taxpayer? Or are you representing the board? You're probably a taxpayer. But in open house, I guess, lots of lapel means secondary, right means primary. I don't know.
well, one example would be, for example, the BOCES open house. Now that would, I think, to be an appropriate time to have some identification on you when you're mingling with people from other parts of the, that they're so-and-so from Lake Placid. So that could be
Sure,
an
yeah,
appropriate
okay, that's-
time,
That's
something
an
like that.
appropriate time, sure.
You
Or
could wear it
maybe
to the
even
school
going,
board convention.
yeah,
Right.
to the state events or Albany or whatever, so you're just, so, I don't know.
And that's, you're representing the school at that point, so not necessarily around town, but, or at
It's stewards.
sporting events
Yeah,
or.
going to Stewart's.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we should probably have them. I don't know how often we actually
Probably
use it
not very often.
but
What
Is
about
there
the
a
badges?
cost associated with it?
BOE.
Yeah. Don't we know?
It's pretty minimal, I mean, just do the same ID that every staff member has. I mean, it's, you want to get your picture taken.
With the
If
clip.
we had that, if you
No
put electric
back
lights
badge.
on the back of it, I'm on board.
Yeah.
And actually,
Just one door. I
Into
don't
the
want it
building.
anywhere else, just the back door so I can go to sites.
There'd be no swiping, Jeff.
it's a swipe card, it's a swipe card, and it's got your, got
My
your
picture on it,
Yeah,
that's it.
you'll get in.
Picture,
He's
name, school board, and it's a swipe card, does it all.
We could certainly look into it.
Okay. Gives a thumbs up and a thumbs down in Wilmington.
Everything's decided there.
What do we charge the kids an extra $5 if they lose?
Any more on the IDs?
Something like that?
As long as it lets us
don't
be
really-
able to go skating for free, that would be the main thing.
Nobody gets in there.
All right, the minutes from the last board meeting are under consent. Anti-bullying proclamation, action items. There are two articles under, are those under executive or? Yeah. Can those be moved up after? Okay, good. Hazing, harassment, discrimination, and bullying defined. And then there's one specific to anti-bullying activities within our district, so.
And that, by the way, is a working list. That's not an authoritative list. It also addresses issues of broad social and emotional climate kinds of activities, as well as very specific to bullying or anti-bullying directives. Some of it is a response, represents a response to it, almost a negative response. In other words, it's intervention, and some of it's prevention and positive kinds of things. So again, that's a working list. Some of that's very current this year. Some of that's been around for a long time. So just provided you that for your own information and background.
Yeah, there's a great explanation and narrative under executive content. I pulled out a little bit of it that I'd just like to, before reading the proclamation, but just highlighting the positive school climate, creating a positive school climate, make safer schools, and Anti-Bullying Awareness Month is October, during which thousands of schools, communities, organizations, and individuals promote resources, initiate campaigns, and promote efforts aimed at raising awareness for bullying prevention. Supporting this proclamation allows our district to join others around the world in making a statement against bullying. So the proclamation reads, whereas we must safeguard schools and communities for our children, and through our recognition of the serious issues that face them each day, offer our children an environment that holds promise and security. And whereas many organizations, school districts, educators, parents have publicly expressed concerns about the bullying of children, and whereas each day an estimated 160,000 children refuse to go to school because they dread the physical and verbal aggression of their peers and the loneliness that comes from being excluded and made a target of rumors and cyberbullying. Many more students attend school in a chronic state of anxiety. And whereas it is important that we acknowledge and heighten awareness about the serious issues and the negative effects of bullying include the long-term damage it can cause in our youth, as well as the risks of teenage suicide. And whereas providing a safe physical and emotional environment is a significant goal and a personal responsibility of each individual. And whereas it's time to say, stand up for character and down to bullying. Now therefore be proclaimed that the Lake Placid Central School Board of Education hereby designates the month of October 2018 as Anti-Bullying Awareness Month in the Lake Placid Central School District, as a symbol of our commitment to the year-round struggle against bullying. May I have a motion to pass this proclamation?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. A second?
Yes.
Thank you, Martha. Any discussion? If you could please vote.
Maybe I don't know what's going on, it doesn't walk it through.
Yeah, I have the same problem.
Does this go in the paper or something? We should probably send it out as a press release.
That'd be a good idea.
Maybe we put it up there.
7-4-0 against, thank you. Next active action item, professional development plan acceptance. Roger, would you like to review? Yes.
Well, professional development plan is required every year. And so this is a resubmission of a plan that's similar to last year's, but not the same, it's updated. I think more important than the plan itself is our approach to professional development here, which is centering it where it matters the most with our faculty. So our professional development, our approach to professional development here in Lake Placid is not a top-down approach. In many places it is. In many places, the state education department sort of sets the stage. The regional BOCES follows through. The local superintendent falls behind, and we go through those steps. And we actually do it very differently here. We meet as a group of colleagues, and those colleagues include teachers, teaching assistants, and administrators working together. We've had a board representative for a number of years. I'm not sure if we're continuing that. Are you going to?
Yes.
So you're going to join us on that.
I missed the last meeting.
Well, it's probably been one of the most rewarding committee assignments. You don't say that very often, sometimes in organizations, but one of the most rewarding committee assignments in the district, because people here know that they have the ability to shape the year's growth plans and base it both on their own ideas but also on the ideas of their colleagues. And we touch base with their colleagues and their ideas on a regular basis using surveys and conversations and discussions. So when you hear, for example, I said before that we have our half day coming up, and our team and team meetings and collaborative activities that are going on. That's their idea. And when it's their idea, we make a lot of progress. A lot of good things come of that. So that's what our professional development plan is really based on. It's based on that, I'll call it teacher-directed approach to professional development. So I think it's been a terrific piece of what we do here, and I'm happy that we're continuing it.
Thank you. So the professional development plan for 2018-19 is in your packet. The recommended action is whereas the superintendent and the professional development team have developed a professional development plan for the 2018-19 school year, whereas the requirements have been met in accordance with Part 100 regulations of the New York State Commissioner of Education, now be it resolved that the professional development plan that is attached hereto and made a part hereof is hereby adopted. May I have a motion, please? Thank you, Colleen. Second?
Yes.
Thank you, Lee. Any discussion? Good. Please vote. Yes. 7-4, 0 against. Passes. Next on the agenda is special education, which was part of the consent agenda. Is there any questions for the?
I don't think there's another packet.
There is
Another
no,
packet.
there is not. Okay. Good. Go from the volumes to nothing. So.
We take 2 weeks off on special education packets.
Next meeting date, October 2nd at 6:30 at the Wilmington Community Center. And then again on October 16th, right back here in Lake Placid. So those of you who have not had the experience of Wilmington, you will be pleasantly surprised.
They draw a crowd.
Draw a crowd.
They do.
Sometimes.
Now that we said that.
Wouldn't that be ironic?
Yeah. Any old agenda items? I think we can get rid of the status of survey cameras. Building repairs, we had that report. School resource officer had that. Auditorium seating is the only thing that's under there, so.
Did anything come of that at open house?
We got very little feedback at open house. We did get a good amount of feedback on our Facebook page. And, the feedback generally was, I would say, supportive of the new seats if we truly believe we need them, and supportive especially if there wasn't really any cost difference. And yet there were some ideas that were shared, which I thought were good ones. One of which was a request that if we do replace the old seats, to provide the community with a way to purchase or auction off or raffle off some of the old seats, which was a great idea,
actually.
And then there was concern about the nameplates. What do we do with nameplates? That's already been a sort of topic of discussion here, so that wasn't any different than what we'd already talked about. I think that was the bulk of it. So at this point, in my communication with the architects, my plan is to ask them to move ahead and yet to also make sure that when those prices come in, that is indeed, a fairly even cost for one or the other.
Thank you. Any new agenda topics, items? All right, enter the adjournment phase. We have a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Thank you. Second?
Yes.
Thank you, Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 7-4-0 against.
Love you guys, but.
Oh, well, don't leave. I have cake.
Oh,
That's right.
Yeah.
Yay, Karen.
Is it made with extra sugar?
It's Leonard's favorite.
So sometimes Leonard likes to leave right after the meetings.
I'm not leaving.
But he never leaves when there's chocolate, and especially when he has this cake. I expect him to stick around.
Put your own date in.
What am I dating? Oh,